Shalom. Uploading this video because I am in the process of reading a book. Tried to upload some excerpts from the first chapter yesterday along with some of my commentary, and it ran over my upload limit time. So instead, I decided to write down my thoughts versus reading the excerpts and basically read out loud basically what I ascertained from the chapter, and that way potentially it can turn a light on in someone else's mind, and that we can help each other basically learn and grow. The book is called Education in the Social Order, and it's basically the first chapter is entitled The Individual versus the Citizen. And it's basically you have to put everything into perspective as far as when the book was written. It was originally published in 1932. Who wrote the book? It was a white guy, of course, and basically you basically have to consider the time, the place, the person, and then how that relates to who you are reading the book. But at any rate, there's a lot of information that can still be extracted from a book about the educational system and how it's there to keep things the way they are versus to help the individual flourish to their full potential. And that's basically really relevant for Israelites that are caught up in the American school system or even in the European school systems. I'm sure they have their own programming too. But basically, chapter one, it's entitled The Individual versus the Citizen. And these are a few of my notes. It says, the only good education to create a citizen is one that preserves the individual's culture. And my opinion is, what if the society has robbed you of your culture and you're basically stuck inside of their world? Well, in that case, in our case, as Israelites, as so-called African Americans, they insert a new culture, and then they insult it. At any rate, it would be the insertion of the ruling class's structure. This being used the wrong way, it creates this education creates a person who will eventually become a perfect tool for the government. Education today exclusively supports the views of the government. Patriotism is enforced as a major part of modern education. This has nothing to do with the individual or the benefit of the individual to better society, but it has everything to do with the cohesiveness to maintain the current power structure and ensure that there will be no major shifts. This patriotism programs people to tolerate and attempt to justify blatant injustices. This education's primary goal is to push the laws of the land and the Constitution as the end-all and be-all of what should be and what should not be. And the American education hinders people from thinking outside of these parameters for solutions or seeking for truth or a non-hypocritical form of morality. And this is a pattern that is not easily broken because it's enforced from one grade level to the next. People become comfortable in their learned ways and are very unlikely to change from the agenda of what has already been established by the status quo. A person who is still an actual individual has the ability to see at least two viewpoints that are considered to be sane in a society under this type of programming. They have the ability to judge according to true morality and an unwillingness to compromise that to be considered a good citizen. To be a rebel is pretty much just by default, and it's not by choice. It's just by not choosing to be a rebel, but just choosing to not be a good citizen, or what they consider a good citizen. To be a rebel, sometimes people are termed this for their sympathy for the downtrodden, and then other people are termed rebels for their hate for the oppressor. And these are two distinct types of rebellion, and both are considered troublesome by the current so-called educational system. If you do not have sympathy for the poor or the weak or the downtrodden, and you're kept blinded from seeing the hidden hand that oppresses them, you can never actively seek to change those things. The current educational system places a lot of weight on science and mathematics. These are the avenues in which free thinking is permitted and applauded in the school, but this poses very little threat to the status quo. This, the thinking involved is very linear, controlled, tentative, and calculated. In short, the parameters are already defined, they're already well defined, and they will only contribute to what already is rather than invent something completely new. And to me, it reminds me of like a person that works out with just one side of their body. Like if you constantly lift weights with one arm, the other one arm is gets bigger than the other arm. Does that make you physically fit because you have one strong arm, or does that make you physically unfit? I mean, because you're out of balance. It's unnatural and you're out of balance. So the educational system is used also to recreate history, and where certain things can be left out in order to not shake the current power structure. And you see, there's an actual truth, and then there's the adaptation. And in school, we receive the government's adaptation. It reminds me of how the Jew-owned media machine propagates movies about slavery, and they leave out the details, the gruesome details, and the true atrocities of slavery. And movies like Django Unchained, Queen, and Roots come to mind. And I remember having to watch Roots in 6th grade, and my teacher, she constantly paused the movie to install her programming into us. She was trying to rationalize the beatings that Kunta Kinte received. She'd pause the video and be like, he's getting beat because da 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 da. Instead of teaching the truth. I mean, even that there is a Hollywood movie with someone's vision or someone's invention of what transpired proves that there's programming. And these movies, they become a part of the programming, and a lot of them have increasingly become part of the curriculum. And some schools are even going so far as to take slavery out of the textbooks altogether. So in this case, what we don't know actually does hurt us. And the Bible says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And we're just going to have to pull together and try to take some of these blinders off. The first thing being the educational system. I don't have any children, but if I did have children, I would definitely be homeschooling them, because the odds are stacked against us just being who we are in that school system. It's never meant to make us flourish as human beings. If you can get out of that school system and still maintain your essence, that's like a miracle. That is a miracle of the Most High that's able to happen. But like it says, the first chapter is entitled The Individual versus the Citizen. And a perfect education in which we can better each other as so-called African Americans is one where we are able to retain our culture, or what's left of it. So anyway, that's just my first upload on the first chapter, and I don't know, I may keep going with this and just keep updating as I get through the book, or recap in chunks or something. But I don't know, I just kind of wanted to get some of the thoughts off of my chest that developed from reading that part. And if you want to read the book, it's called Education and Social Order, and the guy, what was his name? I think it's Bertrand Russell, and the publisher is George Allen. I have an old version of the book from the 90s, but yeah, so I'll be back. Shalom.